The week at university always felt like a mix of chaos and adrenaline, but that semester was proving to be even more intense. Maybe it was the study group we had formed for the final project, or simply the chemistry between us. The summer heat, combined with the inevitable closeness in stuffy classrooms, made the atmosphere even more charged. That afternoon, our group decided to meet at the library. Amid whispers and the sound of turning pages, he sat next to me, his presence always so magnetic. I was wearing a light dress, and the occasional touch of his leg against mine felt like an electric current passing between us. He knew exactly what he was doing. The corner smile gave it away. "I need help with this part here," he said, leaning closer, his voice low enough to make my heart race. His hand rested on the table, too close to mine, and for a moment I felt the tip of his fingers brush against mine. I pretended not to notice, but the shiver that ran down my spine was impossible to ignore. As the library began to empty out, he suggested we move elsewhere. "The terrace has a great view for working, and there's also a breeze," he said, with a look that seemed to carry far more intentions than just studying. I agreed, trying to appear nonchalant. On the terrace, the environment was more relaxed, and the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange. He sat at one of the stone tables, and instead of choosing another, I settled beside him. "I hope you don't mind," I murmured, knowing exactly the effect of my words and tone. He simply smiled, leaning slightly to adjust his position, which made our shoulders touch. The warmth of that contact was undeniable. Conversation flowed between comments about the project and playful teasing. At one point, he held my hand to illustrate a point in the text, but he held on for too long. My heart seemed to beat louder with each passing second. "Are you always this dedicated?" he asked, his voice laden with something I couldn't quite define. I responded with a smile, leaning in a little closer. "Depends on how interested I am in the subject." Our eyes met, and for a moment the whole world seemed to disappear. A gentle breeze tousled my hair, and he, with an almost rehearsed naturalness, brushed a strand that had fallen across my face. "That's better," he said, his eyes fixed on mine. The tension was palpable, but neither of us seemed willing to break the moment. And so, between smiles, casual touches, and gazes that said far more than words, the afternoon gave way to night, leaving in the air a promise that this game between us was just beginning. The nighttime breeze on the terrace carried a mix of freshness and electricity. While the rest of the group seemed to have vanished, it was just me and him, wrapped in silence interrupted only by the distant sound of footsteps and voices across campus. The atmosphere felt calmer, more intimate, as if the world around us had slowed down to watch. "You're not in a hurry to leave, are you?" he asked, his eyes sparkling in the soft light from the street lamps. His voice held a gentle tone, but with something challenging, as if he were waiting for something from me, a reaction that wasn't easily read. "Not at all," I replied, holding his gaze for a moment longer than was usual. "I like this calm when everything here quiets down." My voice sounded softer, slower, though my mind was racing, questioning what he truly wanted with that question. He rose slowly, as if every movement was a preparation for something he already knew would happen. He walked to the railing that bordered the terrace, his posture relaxed, but his eyes alert. I leaned there beside him, feeling the closeness that made the air between us seem heavier. The smell of damp grass and the distant sounds of the city added a sense of isolation to the moment. "The view is truly amazing," I commented, looking out at the city lights in the distance, trying to divert focus from what was beginning to unfold between us. "But not as much as—" He paused, looking directly at me, and the pause made my heart race in my chest. Heat quickly rose to my face, not from embarrassment, but from something more instinctive. He was bold, but always with that touch of ambiguity, as if he were playing hide-and-seek with his own feelings, and that kept me in a constant state of anticipation. "As much as what?" I asked, raising an eyebrow, more than just curious. I wanted to understand what he was hinting at, but at the same time I knew perhaps it was better not to know. The smile he gave seemed to carry 1,000 answers, but he didn't say them. Instead, he simply leaned closer, reducing the space between us even more. "As much as what makes me want to prolong this night." His voice came out low, almost like a secret shared just between us. My words got lost before reaching my lips, and the only thing I could do was lock my eyes on his, trying to stay calm, even as my heart seemed ready to burst from my chest. The atmosphere around us grew heavier, more tangible. I could feel his warmth, his scent, as if he were absorbing all the space around us. Touch of his hand against mine was subtle, almost a test, as if waiting for my reaction. I stayed still for a second, perhaps longer than necessary, before allowing my fingers to intertwine with his. The simple gesture made my mind wander, as if the world around us ceased to exist. When I didn't pull away, he let his fingers slide until he held my hand firmly, and in that moment I knew without words that he was challenging me in a much deeper way than I had imagined. "Are you always this straightforward?" I asked, trying to sound provocative, but the words came out softer than I expected, as if the game had already changed somehow. He chuckled softly, tilting his head slightly, as if considering my question before answering. The sound of his laughter was calm, but there was something dangerously confident about how he remained composed, even in the smallest gestures. "Only when I know it's worth the risk." And there he was again, leaving me speechless. Every phrase he spoke carried weight, as if it was loaded with hidden intentions that I could barely decipher. But I didn't need to figure everything out. Something inside me already knew what was happening, knew what I wanted too. There was a moment of silence, a moment where everything seemed suspended, time stretched to the point of no longer being containable. And then he leaned in a little closer, his free hand now lightly resting on my waist. I felt a shiver run down my spine, as if his mere presence there held power over my breathing and my thoughts. I could have pulled away, but the truth was I didn't want to. "I think you're too good at this game," I whispered, my lips almost touching his, the closeness leaving me breathless but also at peace, as if it was inevitable. "And you're a worthy opponent," he replied, and in that moment the world became smaller. He closed the final gap between us with an almost imperceptible movement, but the energy in the air became tangible, every last thread of tension between us exploding in a soft kiss. But this kiss, it was everything that had been left unsaid until that moment. Every second of conversation, every look, every touch, all of it materialized right there. When we pulled away, his hand was still on my waist, and his eyes searched mine with an intense gaze as if he were looking for something. Or maybe just confirming that this shared moment was being etched into my mind, just as it was in his. "I guess we're not going to get much studying done tonight," he joked, his voice carrying a light humor that made everything feel natural, even amid so much tension, as if we already knew nothing would ever be the same after this. "Maybe we can review a different kind of chemistry," I replied, smiling, and this time I was the one who pulled him closer. The night was far from over, and for the first time in a long while I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be, at the center of something unknown but at the same time perfectly familiar. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone you think would love to hear it too. Your engagement is essential for us to keep bringing more content like this. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Thank you for watching and see you next time.